The rain was relentless, mirroring the storm inside me. Alaric, a 43-year-old IT specialist in Seattle, stared out the window, the city lights blurring through the downpour. Just hours ago, my life was normal. Content even. Now it was shattered, fragmented beyond recognition. It began with a misplaced scarf. A simple, innocuous thing, really. A deep crimson scarf, not mine, not my wife Bronte's. I found it tucked between the cushions of our sofa, a sofa Bronte and I had chosen together, piece by piece, for our perfect, cozy home. Bronte, my wife of 15 years. We met in college, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of classic literature and rainy days. She was a vibrant artist, her studio a chaotic explosion of color and creativity. I was the steady hand, the grounding force in her life. Or so I thought. At first, I dismissed the scarf. Maybe a friend had left it. A neighbor, but Bronte didn't have many close friends, and our neighbors were mostly elderly couples who wouldn't be caught dead in crimson. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to sprout. I started noticing other things. Bronte's phone always face down, her late nights at the studio becoming more frequent. The way she flinched when I touched her, a subtle withdrawal that sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to talk to her to ask if something was wrong. But she brushed me off, attributing her behavior to stress, to the pressures of her upcoming art exhibition. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But the unease persisted, gnawing at me like a persistent toothache. Then came the email. An accidental glimpse, a fleeting moment when Bronte left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. The subject line, "Missing you." My heart hammered in my chest as I clicked on it. The email was from someone named Lysander. Someone Bronte clearly knew intimately. The words swam before my eyes, a torrent of passion and longing that left me breathless. "I can't wait until Saturday," Lysander wrote. "Just a few more days until I can hold you in my arms again. I miss your laugh, your touch, everything about you." The blood drained from my face. Saturday, that was tomorrow. Bronte had told me she was going to a pottery workshop in Portland. A pottery workshop. The lie hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I felt a wave of nausea, the world tilting on its axis. I stumbled back, knocking over a stack of Bronte's art books. They crashed to the floor, a discordant symphony of my unraveling reality. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, replaying the email in my mind, searching for some explanation, some way to make it all go away. But there was none. The truth was undeniable, a cold, hard fact that I couldn't escape. Bronte was having an affair with Lysander. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at the flickering flames in the fireplace, the scarf a silent accusation on the coffee table. I thought about Bronte, about the years we had spent together, the vows we had made. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? As dawn approached, a plan began to form in my mind. A plan born of anger, hurt, and a desperate need for answers. I decided to follow her. I knew it was a risk, a violation of her privacy. But I couldn't bear the thought of sitting at home, waiting for her to return with a fabricated story about pottery in Portland. I needed to see for myself, to understand, to confront her. I arrived at the train station early, parking my car a block away. I watched as Bronte pulled up, a small suitcase in tow. She looked different, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She walked with a spring in her step, a smile playing on her lips, a smile that wasn't for me. I followed her onto the train, keeping a safe distance. I watched as she settled into her seat, pulling out a book. She seemed oblivious to my presence, lost in her own world. The train pulled out of the station, heading south. I sat there, numb, the scenery blurring past the window. The hours crawled by. Finally, we arrived in Portland. I watched as Bronte disembarked, her eyes scanning the crowd. And then I saw him. Lysander. He was waiting for her, a tall, handsome man with a confident smile. They embraced, a long, lingering hug that sent a dagger through my heart. They walked away, hand in hand, disappearing into the city streets. I followed them, my heart pounding in my chest. They went to a small boutique hotel, checking in under the name Mr. and Mrs. Davies. Mr. and Mrs. Davies. The finality of it hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a casual fling. This was a deliberate act of betrayal, a calculated decision to deceive and hurt me. I stood outside the hotel, paralyzed by indecision. What should I do? Confront them? Expose them? I felt a surge of anger, a primal urge to lash out, to inflict pain. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would only make things worse. I needed to think clearly to make a plan. I decided to wait, to observe, to gather evidence. I spent the next few hours wandering the streets of Portland trying to clear my head. I went to a coffee shop, ordered a black coffee, and sat there staring out the window. I watched the people go by, their lives unfolding before me. And I wondered, how could Bronte throw away everything we had built together for this, for him? As evening approached, I returned to the hotel. I waited in the lobby, trying to look inconspicuous. Finally, I saw them. Bronte and Lysander emerging from the elevator. They were dressed up, ready for a night out. They walked past me, oblivious to my presence. I followed them to a fancy restaurant, watching as they were seated at a secluded table. I sat at the bar, ordering a drink. I watched them, their laughter, their stolen glances, their intimate touches. It was all a carefully constructed facade, a performance designed to hide the truth, but I saw through it. I saw the lies in their eyes, the guilt in their smiles. After dinner, they returned to the hotel. I waited outside their room, pacing back and forth. I knew I couldn't go in there. I couldn't confront them in the heat of the moment. I needed to be calm, to be rational. I went back to my hotel room, a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the day replaying in my mind. I felt a deep sense of sadness, a profound loss. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by a stranger. The next morning, I checked out of the motel and drove back to Seattle. I didn't call Bronte. I didn't text her. I simply went home. I waited for her to return to tell me her fabricated story about pottery in Portland. She arrived late that afternoon, her face flushed, her eyes bright. "How was the workshop?" I asked, my voice flat. She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. "It was good," she said. "I learned a lot." I nodded, saying nothing. I let her go on, spinning her web of lies. I watched her, studying her face, her body language. And I knew with absolute certainty that our marriage was over. That night I confronted her. I told her I knew about Lysander, about the email, about the hotel in Portland. She denied it at first, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. But I pressed her, presenting the evidence I had gathered. Finally, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She confessed everything, her voice choked with guilt and remorse. She said she didn't know why she had done it, that it was a mistake, that she still loved me. But it was too late. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I told her I wanted a divorce. She begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but I was resolute. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forget what she had done. The divorce was messy, acrimonious. Bronte fought me every step of the way, trying to salvage what she could. But I was determined to get out of the marriage with as little damage as possible. In the end, I got what I wanted. House, the car, the majority of our assets. Bronte moved out, leaving me alone in the house we had built together. The house felt empty, hollow, a shell of what it once was. I spent the next few months in a state of grief, mourning the loss of my marriage, my wife, my future. I went to therapy, trying to process my emotions, to make sense of what had happened. It was a long, arduous process, but slowly, gradually, I began to heal. I started to focus on myself, on my own needs and desires. I took up new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, traveled to new places. I rediscovered my love of life, my passion for adventure. One day, I received a message from a mutual friend. Bronte was in trouble. She had lost her job, her apartment, everything. Lysander had left her, moving on to someone else. She was alone, broke, and desperate. Our friend asked if I would be willing to help her, to give her a second chance. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to let her suffer the consequences of her actions. But another part of me, a part that still cared about her, couldn't bear the thought of her being homeless and destitute. I decided to meet with her. We met at a coffee shop, the same coffee shop where we had first met 15 years ago. She looked terrible. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken, her clothes rumpled. She apologized profusely, her voice trembling with emotion. She said she realized what a terrible mistake she had made, that she regretted everything. I listened to her, saying nothing. I couldn't forgive her, but I could offer her a helping hand. I gave her some money, enough to get her back on her feet. I helped her find a new apartment, a small, modest place in a less desirable neighborhood. I didn't stay in contact with her. I needed to move on, to create a new life for myself. But I knew that I had done the right thing. that I had shown her compassion even though she didn't deserve it. Years passed. I remarried to a wonderful woman named Isolde. We had two beautiful children, a boy and a girl. I was happy, truly happy. One day I received a letter in the mail. It was from Bronte. She was dying. She had been diagnosed with cancer and she didn't have much time left. She asked if I would be willing to visit her to say goodbye. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to ignore her plea. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the good times we had shared, couldn't bear the thought of her dying alone. I decided to go. I told Isolde about Bronte, about the affair, about the divorce. She was understanding, supportive. She encouraged me to go, to say goodbye. I flew back to Seattle, to the city where it all began. I went to the hospital, to Bronte's room. She was lying in bed, pale and weak. She looked up when I entered, her eyes filled with tears. "Alaric," she whispered. "Thank you for coming." I sat down beside her, taking her hand. We talked for hours about the past, about the present, about the future. She apologized again for everything she had done. She said she understood why I couldn't forgive her, that she didn't deserve my forgiveness. I told her that I had forgiven her, not for her sake but for my own. I needed to let go of the anger, the resentment, the pain. I needed to move on. She smiled, a weak, grateful smile. "Thank you," she said. "That means more to me than you know." I stayed with her for a few days until she passed away. I attended her funeral, a small, private affair. I said goodbye to the woman I had once loved, the woman who had betrayed me so deeply. And I walked away a free man. The rain had stopped. The sun was shining. The sky was clear. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the fresh, clean air, and I smiled. I had survived. I had healed. I had found happiness again, and I was grateful. The crimson scarf, once a symbol of betrayal and pain, was now just a faded memory. A reminder of the past, a lesson learned, but not something that defined me. I was Alaric. I was a survivor, and I was ready to live my life to the fullest.